They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome to a random Wednesday episode of Rogue Ways. I just sometimes have to come and live stream to talk about things. I think the last time I did it this randomly, it was the riots. And there's another kind of riot going on right now, and it's a riot in our minds. And it's weirdly just sucking everyone's energy into it. And so I see the Loosh gathering operation going on and am trying to just inject a little bit of rationality and thought into it. So if you are interested in thinking about and talking about Dr. Seuss and the publishing debacle, then this will be a neat episode for you. Probably going to be pretty short, but I just wanted to get out here and talk about some things. I've been trying to talk about things on Facebook on my profile, and so if you're my friend, you maybe have seen that. And it's just been fascinating how intense people are and how few people are actually hearing anything I'm saying, but then projecting onto me all of these ideas and feelings and intentions that are so not mine and never came from me and don't have anything to do with me at all. And it's very interesting, but this happens every time we have something like this that comes up and grabs everybody's attention and gets everybody interacting about something, right? It's divisive. And so I want us to at the very least, no matter where you stand on the issue and no matter where you end up at the end of this, remember that divided is what they want and our emotions flinging at one another is what they want. And so let's not divide ourselves over something so silly, no matter what we think. Someone said to me today, like, I hope we can still be friends even though I don't agree with you. And I was like, oh, honey, like, I would never care if we agree about anything except child rape and torture and, like, violent murder. Those would be the only things that would be breaking for me, you know, in relation to whether or not I continue to care about you or want to hang out with you or respect you. Like, I hope everybody knows that I never will care if you agree with me or not, whether you're a fan, an audience person, whether you're on the show. I mean, I have people on the show all the time that I don't agree with on various things, you know, but I just don't find that important. That's not anything that I care about. Whether or not people agree is not important to me, and it never has been, and it never will be, as far as I can tell. So I don't care what you think, and I hope you don't care what I think, but I do hope we can look into it together because it is a very interesting topic. So what's up, Rico? Nice to see you. Yes, and so Dr. Seuss wasn't canceled, in my opinion, and that's part of what we'll talk about here. So let's get into it. First of all, I always like to remind people that you can go to rogueways.org or CoreySharman.com. You can find all kinds of fun poetry, articles. My most recent, The Narcissistic Cycles of Abuse, prompted by some very narcissistic people who have so many people who are into them, and just the reflection that part of why narcissistic leader types who scream loudly and are very emotional and controlling are so attractive to people is because we were raised in a really abusive, psychotic culture, and we have Stockholm syndrome, and we're very comfortable with abuse, and we're very uncomfortable with being our own leaders, speaking our truths, and not needing someone to tell us what to think. And so these people are very successful. So there's a quick little reflection on that. And as always, I offer tarot for people who are seeking and would like a spiritual connection and some messages from their higher self and their guides. I also offer spiritual guidance, which is a much more nebulous offering. But, you can come here and kind of read a little bit about the different options and sort of what happens when you get that. And I also always have lots of stuff in the shop for you. I have books that I've written myself and will sign and send to you. I have consultations that I do on education and writing. I have so many classes I teach, mostly of a spiritual nature. Got the organite pendants I make, and I still haven't put up my stone and gem jewelry that I'm making because it seems to be moving faster than I can get it up. But I do want to invite everyone to the One Day of Brightness on the spring equinox. And that is, of course, March 20th. It's a Saturday. We go 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain. And last time we went 2 hours over. And so if you're looking for a longer event, then it just might happen. If people want to stick around, basically, we stick around and we do more. But all kinds of stuff, from seeing auras to finding your spiritual allies to how to protect yourself spiritually and different practices. We have 3 master practitioners and master teachers and myself there to share and connect and teach. And it's just a really awesome day to kind of recharge and grab that flourishing energy of the spring. And so I hope that you would like to come join us. And of course, I want to invite you to my new show, Middle Path, on Thursdays. Tomorrow night, we will have Catherine O'Shea with us doing animal communication. As you may have seen her on Rogue Ways before, she'll be only on Rockfin tomorrow. So rockfin.com/rogueways. Come follow, subscribe, support, and catch that show tomorrow. It'll be live streamed there, same time, 7 p.m. And of course, go to rogue.locals.com for the community. This is where we all hang out. You get content that is only here. And all kinds of inside scoops and offerings, such as those necklaces that never made it to my site yet. So other things like that is a place where we can interact and share without censorship. And speaking of censorship, what is censorship? Well, censorship is the suppression of words, images, or ideas that are offensive, or just inappropriate or not wanted. And this happens whenever some people succeed in imposing their personal or political or moral values on others. It can be carried out by government as well as private pressure groups, but censorship by the government is unconstitutional, while other types of censorship are completely protected as freedom of speech. So when people say censorship, do they mean censorship? This is half the argument that has been going on online as far as I'm concerned, is people are saying, well, Dr. Seuss is being censored. And I am pointing out that, well, not really, because you can still publish Dr. Seuss, any of Dr. Seuss. In fact, I'll show you in a second a bunch of Dr. Seuss images that are still freely available to anybody anywhere in the world. So the real idea of censorship, when we talk about it as a community and as a society, we're talking about the government unconstitutionally suppressing our voice and our words. And that can happen and has happened in many countries under, book burnings and in Turkey. I taught in Turkey for a little while, and you weren't allowed to say that Ataturk had, I can't remember if it was blue or green eyes, because he definitely has the opposite. It's either blue or green that you can't say, and it's either blue or green that it is. That's how silly it is in some places that the government has imposed. There was a book page in this graphic novel of that woman who grew up in Syria. You guys might know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the name right now. There's one page in that book where they say that Ataturk had either blue or green eyes, and we literally had to rip that page out of every copy of the book in the school that I worked at. That's censorship, right? In my opinion, when we say the word censorship collectively, that's what we mean. We mean the government imposing the suppression of content or ideas, and that it would be illegal. It is illegal in Turkey to say that Ataturk has either blue or green eyes, whichever one it is. That's censorship. What we don't mean when we say censorship is that you don't show pornographic films in an elementary school, right? We pretty much all agree that it is completely okay for the school to determine that that's not the appropriate content for a child to see, and to not support it being shown, to not purchase pornographic films, to not distribute them to kids. That's an extreme example, right? But we all agree that it is okay for an organization or a person or a group of people to decide what they do and don't want to come out of them or their work or into their group or their home or their family or whatever, right? That we don't call censorship. Based on the broadest definition, you could make that argument, but it's not realistic. It's not actually what we mean or what we talk about when we talk about censorship. So That's the first thing I want to get. And if you personally want to include not showing pornography to kids and things like that, personal choice and personal decisions or group decisions and group choices to not promote or distribute certain material, if you want to call that censorship, you can. But you should just at least know that the vast majority of people in our society, when we talk about censorship, we're talking about the government doing it, right? We're talking about freedom of speech. And we all kind of know everything that I just said as far as what we expect or what's appropriate or inappropriate or what people are allowed to do and not allowed to do. So for the purpose of this discussion, at least, especially because I believe it's the most broadly accepted use of the word, we're talking about whether or not censorship is okay in the government. Because, again, I think we've all accepted that it's absolutely acceptable in every other space except the political, right? And if you don't agree, please let me know why. Please let me know. I think it would be very radical to say that you are against censorship always, right? I actually have said I'm always against censorship, but that's because I mean censorship in this sense that we tend to mean when we are talking as a society, which is actual censorship, which is the government saying you cannot do this. Not we wish you wouldn't, or we're going to like make aims to educate people so they choose not to, or like you can't, it's illegal. And we'll look at some examples of that in other countries again later. So if you can't understand what I've said, or let me know like what the question is. There's been people all day who seem to not understand what I am saying when I'm saying those things, and so I would love to understand if there is a problem, what it is. So please let me know in the comments or chat or whatever what I've misunderstood about the other argument. Then I want to look at this. You know, Dr. Seuss has been, it's just 6 titles. 6 titles. If I ran the zoo, Scrambled Eggs, McElligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, and To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, something else I can't see. So I guess those are the 6 books that they, this publisher has chosen to stop printing. So that's the first thing to understand, because people are saying like they've censored these books. Well, they didn't go into libraries and like they do in Turkey, black out that page or rip out that page, or that would be more closely resembling the type of behavior we tend to not agree with as a society called censorship. They didn't do that, right? There's no laws saying you can't read or publish or distribute or buy or do anything with these books at all. You still can. You can, in fact, buy them so much that they have jumped up in price, right? You definitely can still buy them. And people are like, well, it's going to start leading to them not publishing other of his books. I'm like, maybe. I don't see why you would assume that. They definitely have just stated these 6 books have content they personally don't want associated with their publishing company, and they own the rights to it. I don't know. I just don't have a problem with a publisher doing that. If I was this publisher, would I do it? Absolutely not. You can choose to buy this book or not, and you can choose to pretend it has something to do with me or my values or not. That's your problem. I would not publish it. I would keep publishing it. But do I support them in not doing it? Yeah, like that's their if you could come to me as a if I was a publishing company and you could come to me and say, you have to publish these books you don't want to publish, that would be much more wrong to me than me being able to choose what I do and don't publish. So they own the rights to this. They chose to stop printing just these books, right? And people are saying this is cancel culture. I don't understand what about it would be cancel culture-y, because there's still people buying it at a huge markup. $9,000 some of them are going for. What people don't understand, I think, is they're like, oh, they stopped publishing it, so it'll never be published again, and I should get a copy now. And so they're buying them for extraordinary prices. I would bet money. I would bet a lot of money these are going to be published again, and not even published again, but published again pretty soon because of all of this hubbub and people being like, and the outrage over it is going to make some really intelligent publisher realize I can make a lot of money if I buy the rights to these and start publishing them. And so someone's going to. Like, that's how things tend to go. Just like Other things that have been canceled have found other platforms and done amazingly well because they were canceled. But I don't really see a similarity between choosing not to publish a certain title in your repertoire of books you publish and cancel culture. If they had said, Dr. Seuss is evil, he's bad, he's racist, we're not publishing any of his shit ever again, that'd be more cancel culture-y to me. That'd be reactive, that'd be reactionary, that'd be attempting to suppress all content in the entire person. That feels a bit more like cancel culture. But to just say, we have decided these 6 books are a bit much, they're kind of racist, and we don't want to support that anymore, and we're choosing not to publish them, I don't see a problem with that. Again, would I do it? No. But do I care if they do? No. Again, if I'm missing something about that you think I should think about, then please tell me in the comments what it is. I would love to understand more deeply. But again, you yourself could go publish these books right now. Right now. You could go start a publishing company, acquire the rights to these books, and publish them. So tell me how that's censorship. Again, in the way that we mean censorship, which means as a society, our government or some authority has forced us to not talk about, publish, create, or do something. That's what we mean by censorship. Can you buy these rights and publish it? Yeah, absolutely you can. That's why it's not censorship, right? It's a publishing company, making this choice. People have said, well, it's engineering social opinion. Well, yeah. I mean, definitely. You could definitely say that. You could make that argument and that would make sense. That doesn't make it censorship. And people have said, yeah, but it's evil to just dig up people in the past. No one is perfect. Why would you care that he did this? Yeah, you can make that argument too. I love Dr. Seuss. He had some weird shit in the past and then he grew up and he made other shit that was better. And that's how most humans go. And I think that's rad. I don't care. I'm definitely of the opinion and understanding that there is no 100% good person and there is no 100% bad person. And if you go pretending like someone has to be perfect all the time, you're never going to win because no one is, Someone said yeah, well, he cheated on his dying wife with a younger girl and then she killed herself. And I'm like, well, that sucks. But that's also Gandhi slept with younger women in his bed and, didn't give his dying wife the medicine that she needed, which then she died. Then when he got the same affliction, took the medicine that he had withheld from her on spiritual reasons. That guy's an asshole, right? But at the same time, would you ever say that Gandhi's an asshole? He also did a lot of good things, right? We could take any figure from history. We could look at Hitler. We could be like, wow, what an evil, horrible person. And I bet you could find so many aspects of his life that if you didn't, especially if you weren't clouded and incapable of thought by your understanding of what he also did that was horrible, you'd be able to look at it and be like, what a good guy. Look at what he did. That was nice. And some idiot out there is going to misconstrue everything I just said and somehow say that I support Hitler. But that's how stupid people can be. And that's not what I've said. 100% of people have good and bad in them. There is no absolute good, absolute bad. So yeah, Dr. Seuss is rad. Dr. Seuss is awesome. And anybody who wants to can still publish Dr. Seuss's books, any of them, however they want to, as long as they get the rights. And we've seen countries in, I interviewed Kay Rubacek of Finding Courage film, and we saw, if you didn't already know, in China, you can't even hold a banner that just says the 3 tenets of Falun Gong, which is something like, compassion and kindness and something like community or something. It's 3 words. Literally, it's just 3 good words, and you can't hold a banner that just says those words on them. That's censorship. That is actual censorship. That is something that we should all be really, really concerned about, And we should definitely be concerned if something like that happened in the U.S. But nothing like that I can see is happening, especially as it relates to Dr. Seuss and publishers not publishing his books. And I don't understand why people think it's similar. I don't understand why people think that this is censorship. And again, if you see something I'm totally missing, please tell me. I would love to understand more why people are so upset about this. But yeah, we can, and I'm not even just saying feel happy even when you're abused because some people are abused worse. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's not abusive or repressive or suppressive or sensory to not publish some books. It is to murder people for holding 3 words on a banner. So again, like, do I like it that sorry, my face is huge. My bad. Do I like it that they did this? I don't really like it. I just don't really care. I really can't care that much because so many books come in and out of publishing all the time. They go in and out of printing all the time. It's happened over history. It's not that big of a deal. They never go away forever. I'm sure we have very few books that we'll like never see again. Maybe I'm wrong, but definitely this doesn't seem like a super alarming thing happening. And I don't like it. I think, again, I'm like most, I think, rational people when I say, like, who cares if you're publishing it or not? People can buy it or not. That's their choice, right? So no, I don't think you should like not stop publishing things. At the same time, again, for like, I will always, just imagine being a publisher and being told you can't choose to stop publishing something. That'd be insane. So of course I don't care if they don't publish it. Anyways, is Dr. Seuss racist? Absolutely, he's not. If you look at him as a whole human, if you look at pieces of his life like this cartoon and you ask, are there elements of bigotry or racism in this? I don't think you can deny that there are, right? And like, I don't care. I see that he did this. This was like pretty acceptable at the time. I'm not going to judge him because he did something that was really normal at the time. And especially because he definitely obviously grew on from that to become a better, oriented person in regards to other types of people in the world that weren't him. So, but did he do some shit that you could call racist? Absolutely. Look at it. Look at it. If you can look at this and tell me it's not racist, I would be pretty shocked. But again, if I'm missing something, please tell me how this is not racist. And this is not in the books that they discontinued, right? Absolutely not. These books, in fact, have almost nothing in connection with this. I could see how some people who are very sensitive would look at some of the stuff in some of those books and be like, yeah, that's racist or that's bigoted or whatever. And I probably don't agree with them very much, or at least I haven't looked at them all. Don't hold me to that statement. I'm just saying, like, it seemed pretty innocuous, the few things I looked at that I was like, oh, come on, some fish are wearing parkas. Like, who cares? But I also don't care that those people were uncomfortable with it and chose to not publish it. So yes, these are the extremes, right? These are his really early, very unfair expressions about other people's. And I think they're racist, right? And like, we can go into fucking definitions of the word racism and whatever. I don't really care. I think that you understand why I would say that, and I bet you agree. It's not like horrible. It's not like he was like, man, screw all Chinese people. He, in fact, might have been celebrating this culture. So this is from one of the books, by the way, that was banned. But I can also see why this might make you uncomfortable. You might feel like it's stereotyping or caricaturizing or diminishing a culture. And I can't tell you you're wrong. I can just tell you I don't experience it that way. But again, if you feel uncomfortable and you feel like it is doing those things, I could totally see why you would not want to do it anymore and you'd not want to support it anymore. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No, like, there's millions of these books out there in the world. They're not going to disappear. And again, someone's going to publish these. They're going to see the money in it and they're going to do it. Here's another one. It's another cartoon. It's not from his books that were discontinued. It's just another cartoon. And he was hired to do like this and some of the other stuff. So it's also like, did he even agree with or believe in it? And maybe not. And then you can ask like why he would sell himself out, but maybe people need money. And like, I'm not going to judge the dude. Like, I can totally see why you would look at this and be like, yeah, that's racist. And we don't want to promote that anymore. And I have no problem with that. And obviously, again, if you've read the Sneetches, you know that he clearly got past all that. If he was ever in it and didn't just do it for money, he clearly got past all that and started to teach children how not to judge other people by their appearances and differences. And that's a beautiful moral. And this is part of why all of us, mostly, I don't know anyone who doesn't love Dr. Seuss, for, encouraging them to think as children and to be good people and treat each other well and do it with so much fun. And, no one's erasing that. No one's taking that away from us. Someone said, like, maybe people are just really upset because this was from all of our childhoods and we really love Dr. Seuss and we hate to see him maligned. And I totally understand that. I don't think the publisher is maligning him by saying that those 6 books have some questionable content and don't sell very well and, that they don't want to publish them anymore. There are people outside of the publisher who are just around, in the noosphere, like screeching about his racism. And those people are sad people that need attention. It's something I think we got over like 50 years ago and nobody really cares anymore. Not because it's not important, but because we dealt with this many years ago. I remember as a child learning that Dr. Seuss had this racist stuff in his past. I don't see why we're still talking about it, I don't care if you do. I just think it's weird. And I can understand why people would be sensitive about that and wish that he wasn't being maligned and whatever. And I also think, who cares what people are saying, people have been stupid forever and they'll be stupid forever. So let them be stupid. I don't know. And I am not the person, and I think you know this if you know me, and if you don't know this and don't want to take the time to find out, then, fuck you. But I'm not the person who thinks water is racist, for example, or that Gina Carano made some kind of a mistake by reminding us that when we start turning on our neighbors, it heads to negative political atmospheres that can encourage even worse. I don't think that was racist. I don't think it was inappropriate. I think this is cancel culture. I think this is cancel culture because I think what cancel culture is taking something out of context, pretending you're holier than that person, pretending like every person has to be perfect, placing meaning into what the person said that they didn't ever say or mean, and then erasing their career and their legacy because of it. None of that happened with Dr. Seuss. None of it. It was decades ago. We're describing something accurately. He actually did have inappropriate things, that he portrayed in inappropriate ways. No one's erasing his entirety of his work or his legacy. In fact, even the things that are being discontinued are definitely still available and always will be. Whereas things like this, we'll take people and we'll find something that they did 50 years before, like Dr. Seuss. And instead of just saying oh, let's not show people those things because those are inappropriate, we're saying, oh, let's murder that person's entire world and take it away from them because of something they did all that time ago, right? You can also see how that's very different from what's happening to Dr. Seuss. So I don't think it's cancel culture. I think people are really upset genuinely and legitimately about cancel culture. And I think for some reason they found a way to make people put all that energy into Dr. Seuss, which is, I don't know. I don't want to give them my energy. And I also want to be able to think clearly. And this just is so different than what's happening. All the things that we see that we call cancel culture are so different than what's happening to Dr. Seuss. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to that too, in case you hadn't considered the vast differences between what we usually describe as cancel culture and what is happening with Dr. Seuss's 6 books. And here's something that I am actually upset about, and I still will not call it, that scared me, censorship, because it's not being forced out of production. It's not being suppressed from any viewership. It's not being done by an authority figure, and we can still access it and view it. But I think it's much more upsetting that someone's still living, right? Clarence Thomas is still living. You guys let me know. His movie was, I don't even really know much or care about Clarence Thomas at all. But during Black History Month, this black man's documentary film was removed from Amazon Prime or streaming because they don't like Republicans or right-wing people, and they don't like black people who don't go along with the narrative that, all Black people are oppressed and that this country is systemically racist. And Clarence Thomas not only like disproved that, but didn't go along with it. And, that's pretty much the what I know about Clarence Thomas. But you would think that people would be a lot more upset that a Black man is being erased currently from a service, And I don't see that outrage. So I guess it's like people said, like, this isn't part of our childhood and we're not like emotionally attached to Clarence Thomas. And so we just don't care. But this has more impact on our society, in my opinion, in what they're calling the culture wars. I think it's more important to hear diversity of thought in the Black community than it is to hear questionable content from Dr. Seuss that is the least popular of his content. So there's that. And one of my final points is that books go out of print every day. The number of books out of print is insane. You could never compile them all. But there's a lot. This is just a random Abe Books, one of my favorite bookstores, just a random page of theirs that's out of print books. It's not all of them. It's just a collection of them. And this is just how many. And nobody gave a shit when any of these went out of print. Nobody pretended it was censorship. Every single one of them had a reason why they went out of print. Some of them political, some social, some emotional, some because they just didn't sell. Who knows what the reasons are? Nobody cared. Nobody said anything. Why? Because it's not censorship, and because everyone understood they would still continue to be able to have these books. And everyone knows that as soon as any of these books becomes popular again, just like we've seen over and over and over again, that book will come back into print. Some publishing company somewhere right now is already trying to acquire the rights to those 6 books. I promise you. And they're not going to go away. So that's my point of view. And I just... Oops. You can see my whole weird mirror world. I don't know. I just don't understand why people are having such a hard time talking about it rationally. Because even if you disagree with anything I just said, I still don't care. You're still my, like, beautiful human who I respect, But I've had people, like attacking me because of some of the things I just said. And I'm like, nothing I've said is even controversial. It's not controversial to describe how many books go out of print. It's not controversial to point out what censorship actually means and what censorship actually looks like. And it's not controversial to look at his old work and be like, yeah, some of that's, understandably makes people uncomfortable. I don't care if it doesn't make me uncomfortable. I would happily own all those books and look at them. I'll also, people are like, don't erase Dr. Seuss, just teach about it and teach so people can understand. And have always said that and will always say it. That doesn't mean I have to be against a publisher choosing not to publish certain titles that they own the rights to. It happens all the time. Okay, another thing. People are like, oh my God, they're just like capitalizing off of it. And it's like insanity. His books are like, as we just saw, like thousands of dollars and blah. And like, that's something wrong. And I'm like, that just is automatic trigger when a book goes out of print. But people, the publishers, the people who own copies of it, maybe not regular people, but like people who are making money off of selling books, they get that alert and they instantly put the price up. They don't ask why it went out. They don't even ask questions. They're just like, oh, it's out of print, put the price up. This is how I know, because my books, people don't know about my books. Like, they're not like, popular. They're not like all over the place. One of my books accidentally went out of print once. I didn't notice at first. I don't know how long it was actually out of print before. I must have just like turned off printing or access to it or something in my control panel. And I went somewhere, somehow I was like looking, I was searching for myself or trying to find me on Amazon. I don't remember why, but for some reason I saw a copy of my book on Amazon Marketplace for something like $800. And I was like, holy shit. Like, if I could sell my books for $800, I'm going to be rich. Like, this is amazing. And I, clicked on it and I was like, why is this $800? Like, did something amazing happen to this copy of the book? Was it like held by God and then thrown back down to earth? Like, why is this so expensive? It sells for like $20 or whatever it was at the time. And I, was looking at it and I saw that it said out of print, one of the only remaining copies. And I was like, out of print? And then I was like, it's not out of print, and I went and I figured out, oh my God, it is out of print. So going out of print automatically triggered those people who just so happened to have a used copy of one of my books to up the price to like $800, whatever. Would anyone have ever bought that? No. Nobody would have ever paid $800 for that book, But that's not why they didn't price it that way because they thought people would pay that much. They priced it that way because that's just their algorithm. That's just what they do. Anyways, quick story. That just has not much to do with any of this, except I wanted you to understand that I don't think people are out there like, oh, we're never getting Seuss again. Let's sell these puppies for mass. There maybe are those people, but I think the vast majority of the publishing and world of people who write and are into books, into the book market, in some way, understand that things don't, almost never do they go out of print forever unless they were never really known about, or you know what I mean? Like, that could happen to people who aren't. Seuss is so well known and so widely loved, and especially things like this have so much controversy around it. It's never going to go away. You're never going to lose access to Dr. Seuss, unless just weird ass shit happens in the world, and to just fear that randomly though, and to just think like, well, they've done this, and so now they're going to do all these things they've never done before. They've done this thing they do all the time that's very normal that no one ever cares about. And so now that means they're suddenly going to do these things they've never done before that are going to be crazy. That's not rational. That could happen. It's in the realm of possibility, but it's not rational to assume that they're suddenly just going to start like chopping off children books' heads and like, like this is not a big deal, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I never said hi to Israel Adams. What's up, Israel? What's up, Jay Armstrong? What's up, Awkwardly Awesome? What's up, Lindsay Smith? Nice to see you guys. Denise is here. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. The thing that's been really disappointing for me, is that, again, I've been saying things like, is not publishing a book censorship? And people have mostly been not answering the question, not able maybe to answer the question, and then telling me that they don't like censorship and that I'm wrong for supporting censorship. And I'm like, when did I support censorship? Me asking if you know what censorship is and what not publishing books is not me supporting censorship. But it's been very disappointing to see how few people understand how to hear people's words and what they're saying, and how not to project their own assumptions or anger at other people who actually are in support of censorship, or who actually do hate Dr. Seuss, or who actually do think he's racist or something. And, I think people just like take all of that and like project it on anyone who's not just automatically on their side. And it's been very disappointing because I feel like, especially in our community, this is what we should be vehemently against, is this automatic response, just emotional reactivity. Stop thinking, stop listening to your friends, and start just like spewing at them. We should be on like the highest guard against that type of behavior. We're the ones who are looking at other people doing that for so long and saying cancel culture is bad. Don't do cancel culture. Well, that's a mini version of cancel culture, to look at your friend, not listen to what they're saying, not try to understand them, and then just like spew your opinion at them. Like, I mean, do it if you want, but like, why? For nothing. Like a publisher told you they're not going to actively print a book anymore. That's it. I just don't get why people don't understand that happens all the time. It happens all the time. It's just as crazy to me. I don't know. I'll get over it. I just was very, I was very disappointed at people's inability to talk or think about this subject, and I can understand why, and it makes me worried when people can't have a moment to just think, because the first thing I heard was Dr. Seuss is canceled. He's being called racist and his books are out of print, and I was like, holy shit, what the fuck? That's fucked up. Oh my god, And then someone was like, no, they're just not publishing 6 of his books, and they're like the 6 oldest, most like questionable ones, and they're still publishing all the other stuff. And I was like, oh, instantly. I was like, oh, who cares? Who cares? And who's calling him racist? Idiots. The same idiots that call everyone else racist. Who cares? That's what they do. Don't give them attention. Don't give them your energy. Fuck those people. Who gives a shit what they think? Do you love Dr. Seuss? Rad. Keep loving him. Do you have all of his books? Awesome. Keep having them. Do you want to buy more of his books? Rad. Keep buying them. And if you're that passionate about it, that you're like, none of his books should ever go out of print, make a publishing company, buy the rights and publish them. No one's stopping you. And that's why it's not censorship, because no one is going to stop you from doing that. If there was some authority trying to, that'd be censorship. I'd be worried and we'd have a whole different show, but nothing like that has happened. I don't know. 7-Eleven Lucas is in the house. Nitram Case is in the house. Green Eggs and Ham led to domestic terrorism. Zal Moxis is in the house. I don't know what Patriot Street Fighter 3 is, but I would play that game. If that was a game, I would play it. Yeah, Denise, that's exactly what I'm saying, too. I agree with you. People, I think it's been a long time in the making, but I thought our community was beyond that, and that maybe some of us sometimes don't because of our own, we have issues. We have emotional shit. We have, like, things that trigger us, not in the clinical sense of the word, but, in the normal sense of the word. Like, we just react. And that's cool. Like, we all have to deal with that shit. But in general, I thought our community was like a little bit more rational and thoughtful and not emotionally reactive. And so it's been, again, I initially reacted emotionally too. I was outraged. But then I just like stopped when I heard a fact and was like, oh, well, that's not really the same. It's just like, and then I started listening more and thinking more and asking questions and looking for information. And then I was like, oh, this is actually just like a giant nothingness, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing to, do you want to like be mad at them for not publishing it? Cool. But like, don't pretend like that's some sort of completely oppressive like regime that we live under or something, like, I don't know. And someone made a good point. They were like, well, if this leads to him not getting published further, or people like, tarnishing his entire legacy, or he becomes, known as racist and we can't change that, then I will have felt bad if I didn't stand up and say something. And I'm like, well, yeah. So here's me saying he's not racist and his legacy can be, consumed and appreciated without you promoting some of the more questionable content. And everyone should say that. I think everyone who thinks anything should say whatever they think. But again, to pretend like it's this like outrage and censorship is not something I am understanding currently. But yeah. Did Tucker Carlson talk about this last night? How long has this been going on? I thought it just came out today. Oh, or maybe he's already been on today. I would love to hear him see Sneeches. That would be funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you guys. So I guess that's all I really wanted to say or had to say. And I know, I guess this is happening quickly. I guess like this just happened today and like people are just reacting. And I guess, I'm not the only person who said it, not even in this community, and I think it's good advice to, especially if you find yourself reacting emotionally to something, try to find the space and the time to step back, breathe. Just ask yourself the questions that you're not already thinking, like, is it wrong? I'm reacting as though it's very wrong and I'm very upset about it, but let's just think, like, is there a good reason to do this? Here's a great one to ask. Is there any scenario in which I would do this? I can imagine the scenario in which I would do that. If I was a publisher company and I was looking at all my books that I'm publishing and I'm like, well, those 6 are the most likely to get us in some kind of trouble, and they don't make very much money and I don't care about them. So yeah, let's nix those ones. And 99.9999999% of the time that decision has ever been made, no one's uttered a peep. Not a single one of us has cared. But this time, all of a sudden, it was a huge, huge problem. And I just think we're being the cancel culture ones when we're reacting like that. If we're like, automatically, that publisher and everything they do is shit, I want them to be canceled themselves. Like, well, now you're the one doing it. So don't become what you hate. And if you want to see these books in print, then either find publishers who are likely to buy the rights and support them and tell them you want them to and get that going, or start your own publishing company, acquire the rights and publish them. You'll probably make a shitload of money. It'd be a good business move, in my opinion. If they, they meaning any authority like the government, came out and said, you cannot any longer publish Dr. Seuss in this country, we should fight that. That'd be fucked up. That'd be unconstitutional. It'd be wrong. That's not happening. Someone said, well, this publisher, the people who own his rights or whatever, like, they're never gonna publish it again. And like, because they chose not to, other publishers will feel too afraid to, and so they effectively censored it. And I'm like, we don't know that. If that's what ends up happening, we could then say, well, it's some aspect of censory type of behavior seems to have occurred, since still no one has been ballsy enough to pick up these books and publish them, I guess. I, again, really doubt that that's what's going to happen, but in that case, we could describe it as sort of censory, and it still wouldn't be censorship in the way that we tend to mean it. And I just don't think it's going to have that stifling effect. There's clearly a lot of people who want to see this and buy it and support it. Jenny B is in the house. Candace C is in the house. Nice to see you both. My mouth shall speak the truth is here. And Bonnie. Lindsay Smith says there's way better literature for children, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, that's the other thing, is like, we're very attached to Dr. Seuss in our generation because it was some of the most common and fun children's books. But yeah, are you really gonna pretend like it's like the best thing on earth? Like, it's cool. I'm not in any way diminishing it. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of really great kids books that are probably even better. Yeah. The mentality is like, oh, they're going to cancel this now. Like, we're going to fuck them up and cancel them. And it's like, you're just falling into the division trap. And I'm not saying you shouldn't say you don't like it. I'm not saying you shouldn't say it's stupid to care. I'm not saying you shouldn't say anything you think about it. I'm just saying, I think it's weird to call it cancel culture. I think it's weird to call it censorship. I don't think the true, spirit of those words and the ways that we traditionally use them include this. I don't think that it would be fair to equate them at all. I think you could make the argument of either, and you wouldn't be like 100% out of like all logical reality. I just think it's a big stretch, and it's not very true. So I think it's weird that people are fighting so vehemently over something that's like, it's not even very logical to say that it's canceled. But I understand the wanting to appeal to that, same sort of trend that we are finding anything we can and then like ripping it apart and holding people to too high of a standard. And I understand wanting to call that out. And so, using cancel culture as a term, it makes sense in a way. But if you can't also step back and see the ways that it's not in any way similar to what we have been describing as cancel culture, then that's not very fair either, right? And it's the same with censorship. Like, it's good to call out like, well, why would we erase it? Why not just like teach people about it or whatever? Like, that's rad, call it out and let's talk about it. But then also notice that like, doesn't really have any resemblance to actual censorship. That's where I'm standing. I'd agree that it was like book burning if what they did instead is what they did with a Kindle version of 1984, I'm guessing as a test, in which they deleted all people who had purchased the book and they deleted it from their personal device. not deleted their access to it on the cloud. They went into their device and they deleted it. And it just so happened to be 1984, right? I think that was a like live test of some technology that they're glad that they have and that they probably plan to use. And that I will call censorship. But that's not what this is, right? If it was, I'd say, yeah, that is absolutely very akin to and in the same spirit as the concept known as book burning. This is just a publisher not publishing books. It's just, again, like, picture yourself as a publisher. Each day you're just like battering out books on the press, and then one day you're like, why are we continuing to do this one that not any people really like, and it's like kind of fucked up and I don't really agree with it? Well, then yeah, stop publishing it. Again, would you want someone to be able to come to you and say, no, you have to publish it? You have to. That is censorship if you don't, and we find that like morally wrong and reprehensible, and as a society we're going to force you to publish things that you don't like and don't want to. That'd be fucked up. If you support that, I don't know that there's a lot we can agree on. That's pretty forceful. That doesn't follow the non-aggression principle. Like, let them do whatever they want. Who cares? I love that everyone's like, I hate green eggs and ham. That's funny. My mouth shall speak the truth says they digitally removed you. It's like the precursor to disappearing you in real life. Yeah. Well, and that's like what's interesting about the Gina Carano thing. Like, they're actually canceling her. Like, she's not even allowed to be in they're not making her like figurines anymore. Like, her image won't be in the movie or whatever, like, or the shows or whatever, because she said, essentially, it's not really great to start hating your neighbors for their political beliefs. We've seen where this leads before. People were like, that's anti-Semitic, and like took her out of existence, right? Like, that's cancel culture. Nothing like that is happening to Dr. Seuss, except in the minds of like people who are screeching in random places on the internet, but they're always screeching in the internet, and it doesn't ever matter what they're screeching about, right? These companies and corporations are doing what they want no matter who's screeching. These screeching people are just screeching. They're screeching all the time. Like, who cares what they screech about? Don't give them your attention. Oh, interesting. Candace is saying that Dr. Cowan's book was also deleted along with Animal Farm from her personal device. See, that's way more concerning to me. If this level of outrage was happening because of that, I would be so happy. But I was like, why are people this upset about it? It's just going out of print for now by that one publisher. That's not even, I don't even know why it's news. You know why it's news? It's news because they wanted everyone to fucking freak out about it and then fight about it. And what's happening in the meantime? Probably bombs on Syria. Like, genuinely, there's probably hella fucked up shit happening right now. And instead, well, and again, I don't care if you're worried about it or you're upset about it or you're talking about it. You should say exactly what you want and think and stuff. I just also always like to remember that the best thing we can do is not react emotionally right away. Stop and think from all angles. Purposely think from the angles that you're not thinking from now, right? You have the ability to listen, here's what my brain's telling me. My brain's telling me I'm mad and that I don't like this. Now let's look at the people and the point of view who love it. Now let's look at the people and the point of view who are neutral. Now let's look at the definitions of some of the words that people are throwing around, and by then you will have probably lost a lot of the emotion, and you will probably be able to look at all of that at once and be like, okay, well, here's where I land, right? Here's like the most rational kind of like place to be. That's the best way that we can respond to anything, When the Boston bombing took place, I instantly was like, I'm not even considering the emotional aspect of this. I'm just going to try to be really rational about what they're showing me on TV, what they say happened, and I'm not even going to let myself be involved in the emotional part. If after a while I decide that genuinely people were hurt and died and whatever, and then I will feel sad. And then I will allow myself to connect with the emotion of that. But I'm not going to do it right away, right? And if I could do that for every single thing that came up in the news every single day, I'd be killing it. We should all be aiming to do that. And again, if then you find out like, oh my God, there really was, like, they actually did drop fucking bombs on Syrian kids and weddings in fucking Yemen and shit. And like, I am genuinely like, my heart hurts for that. I'm angry about that. Now my emotion has purpose, right? And I know that it's based on something that is real. And I know that like I'm not going to regret having felt sad for the bombs dropping on the Yemeni weddings and whatnot, right? But if I just wake up, see this Dr. Seuss word, think about whatever, and then just freak out and then all day just be angry, I don't know, you might look back and be like, whew, that was a big waste of energy that I gave away to who knows what. Who knows who's been siphoning off all this energy, and who knows what they've been doing with it. And again, who knows what they've been distracting us from. So I've seen this like take over some people's minds today, and I've seen some people like just like lashing out again at like friends, at people who I thought like cared about each other, and like ripping each other apart. And I'm like, I'm so amazed that something like this can do that. Like we must just be like so far, gone in our emotions about the other more legitimate kind of things that have been happening, that we're just like using this to like project and dump into. I don't know. But yeah, and that's the other thing. My mouth shall speak the truth. Is people are like, you don't agree with me. Ah! And I'm like, I don't care if anybody ever agrees with me. I'm never going to. I don't know why anybody would. It's weird to me when people get angry. But you know what it is? Narcissists do that. That is actually one of the primary traits of narcissistic personality disorder, is that you cannot abide by people thinking differently than you. Go watch some of the other people who have shows and who are loud and emotional, and look at how they treat people who don't agree with them. Then you'll know who has narcissistic personality disorder. And it's a lot of them as far as I can tell. And maybe they don't. I don't want to diagnose people. But they have a lot of the tendencies that are similar, right? And like I said in that little article that I just pushed on the site, there's a reason why a lot of people flock to those people. And you want to ask yourself, I do this to people I listen to. I'm listening to podcasts for a while, and then I have to stop every once in a while and be like, what kind of person is this actually, though? Like, besides the content that they're bringing that I enjoy or whatever, like, are they a healthy, good person? Because again, like I often say, you want to look at the people who you're sort of admiring or following or listening to, and you want to ask yourself, do I like them? Are they a person that I would like want to like support actually, and like give, my like hand my child to for a day or something, like, and most importantly, what's their life like? What's their quality of life like? Their quality of being like? And do I like that? If you can say all pretty good answers to those questions and you enjoy that, and that's good energy, it's probably a really good person to give your energy to or get energy from, or, be around. We are a collection of the influences around us. So we do want to be careful about these things. And sometimes I look at some of these shows that I used to had loved and thought were very great. And I'm like, oh my God, this person is really actually mentally not well. Like their life is, as far as I can tell, not a happy life. And I wouldn't want my children to hang out with them. They don't seem like they've got really good energy. They're probably not going to rape and kill them, right? But they're like, I don't want my kid to end up like them, right? So like, ask yourself that, and then just kind of look, like I said, at the people how do they respond to people who don't agree with them? Again, and it was sad today when someone asked me, or told me like, oh, I hope since we don't agree that we can still be friends. I felt like so sad because I was like, I've never given the indication to anyone that they have to agree with me in order to remain my friend. Not for my whole life. I've never had that in me that I've ever given a shit what people think. I have friends who are, all over the political spectrum. I have friends who are all sorts of orientations towards all sorts of subjects, and I don't care at all. I care if you're a good person and if you treat people well and if we can be happy in each other's company for the most part, like that's what I care about. And, genuine, authentic people. So it was sad because what that means, it had nothing to do with me. That person had never experienced me as being someone who would do that. That person was saying like, basically, I often get abandoned by people when I don't agree with them. Will you please not do that to me? That's what that person was saying. That's why it made me sad. I was like, oh God, no, I would never do that. I promise you. And that's part of what prompted that piece I wrote on narcissism. Because I'm like, this is why we are like this, is we're raised in a society where narcissistic personality disorder, psychopathy, and sociopathy are the people who make it to the top. And they're the people who, therefore, control, the structuring of our society. We see it. This is why we cut babies' penises off and shit. Like, we are run by psychopaths, and we are a psychopathic culture. And so we are comfortable with it. We have Stockholm syndrome. We like our abuse in some way, not because we actually enjoy being abused, but because we are comfortable with it. Just like any abuse victim, if you're raised in abuse as a child, you're most likely going to find an abuser as a lover later in life, not because you're stupid, not because you can't figure it out, not because you like it, but because it's what you know. You know how to do that. It feels comfortable. Unfortunately, that's true, right? So we go seeking psychopathic, sociopathic, and narcissistic personality disorder people to tell us how to be and how to think and what to do because we're used to that. We were raised like that in school. All our media is telling us to be obedient and just do think what we told you to think and just do what we said. And if you don't, people are going to be mad, right? And that's actually the essence of cancel culture. And it has conditioned us, and we have learned to love our chains, and we have learned, and yes, even us in this community here where we know our chains and we look at our chains and we try to rip them off of ourselves, we also have these tendencies, and we also have to, again, especially when things like this happen, ask ourselves to calm down and to step back and to think and to evaluate, to look at all the different perspectives, and then we can respond instead of react, and we can do it thoughtfully, right? And we can do it in a way where we don't allow narcissists and fucking freaks to tell us what to think about it and how to be emotional and angry about it and how to follow them about it. Because that's another thing you may have noticed this whole time. I'm telling you, here's how I see it. Here's some things I'm looking at. I might be wrong. Let me know, right? I don't ever think that I'm just absolutely right. And I'm never going to tell you that I'm right. I'm never going to tell you what to think. Ever. Because you got to think for yourself. And we all have to not just follow people, especially when we're emotional and especially when they're emotional, And I don't mean emotional, I just showed you a little bit of the sadness I felt. That's technically emotional. I mean the people who are rah, rah, yelling at you from their video. And it feels really good sometimes too, aside from the abuse cycle of it that a lot of us are just following because it's really comfortable to be just told and feel like this person is so strong and they know, and so they just can tell us what to do and what to think, and that just feels good. But there's also a part of it where we are really angry often, and we're really scared. We might be angry about this Dr. Seuss thing, and we might be scared that it's not going to be published, and it might be worse things than that often, where we're angry that they're maybe going to force a vax. We're scared of that, and we have all these emotions, and we have all this especially for the elites at the top, we're fuck you, and then someone's screaming about it, and we're yeah, someone's screaming about it. And we are it's cathartic or something, and then we get caught up in that fucking bullshit loose trap, and we have to watch out for this shit. These people are fucking parasites, and they're everywhere, and people flock to them. And I will not name people by names because I think you can figure it out for yourself. I know you can because you're very intelligent people, and you're very emotionally well people overall, and I'm very proud to have you in this community, and I'm very grateful for you. Bros had a friend of 15 plus years cancel him last year because of cancel culture influence. Oh, that's what I'm saying. This is what I'm seeing over the Dr. Seuss things. People are well, fine, if you don't think this is censorship and you don't hate it and you're not going to rail against it with me, then fuck you. I'm Jesus, it's a fucking couple of books. Whoo, okie dokie. Yeah, and Lindsay Smith says, it dilutes real censorship. When we can say, if you are able to legitimately say to yourself, this is censorship, then what is it when you literally lose your life for holding a banner with 3 words on it? I'm not saying either one's right. I'm saying words matter, and it's nice to be able to talk about specific things by using the words that apply to them, rather than trying to redefine it or trying to stretch a definition, or, I think that dilutes it. I think it diminishes it. I think it's the same thing most of us have been saying about the shit that everyone's screaming racism all the time, right? We're like, well, if you scream racism at every single thing that happens, what's racism? You know? Like, does it even matter anymore? If everything's racist, why even talk about it? It dilutes it, it diminishes it. Now you can't look at something where you used to have been able to look at it and say, like, that is actually racist. And people would go, oh, racist? Now it's like, people are like, oh yeah, it's racist. Like, everything's racist. This hat is racist. This flower is racist. Like, you know, your skin color is racist. Like, I personally think words are so shitty already at trying to explain and express what's actually going on in the, you know, infinite emptiness of our souls that I would like to be able to use what little value we do have in words and actually make them effective. And I think it's very ineffective to misuse or loosely just throw around these phrases. And I also think, if any of us thinks back long enough, any of us who are calling this censorship and cancel culture and haven't started to rethink that yet, if you look back long enough, you are the one saying exactly the opposite of what I just said, right? Like, if you overuse this term and you call everything that, it's not going to mean anything anymore. So at least maybe think about that and whether or not you were that person a minute ago and now you're doing the same thing that you said you didn't like. But that's just me, right? Exactly. Vaccine reactions, Syria, Texas choosing not to do masks anymore, which, you know, we should have not worn masks anyway. We should do whatever we want, not listen to some stupid governor, but super rad still. Congratulations, Texas. And yeah, maybe those are the things they don't want us to think about or talk about. And instead we're talking about this, which I do think matters. I think that we should wonder why everyone's suddenly so emotional about it. Just like I say every time everyone gets emotional about anything, left, right, center, anywhere, I'm like, whew, let's all just step back and just like take a moment. Why are we all triggered? Why are we giving our emotion away? Why are we pouring our illusion to this? What do they want it for? And what do they want us to not be doing in the meantime? Very important questions. Yeah, Candace C. said when Hoaxvid started, libraries were encouraged to physically burn books because they weren't able to clean them. So that was concerning. I think we did a whole portion of an episode just on that and how fucked up that is. That is way scarier than anything that is happening today. And the worst part about that, Candace, I think, and tell me what you think, but the worst part about that is that this whole thing has been, I think, most likely like a sort of trial run. And like Gary Wayne and I were talking about last night, it's very likely that in the future, this same exact scenario is going to happen, but way worse. All the actual deaths will be much higher and the response from the government will be much tighter and more controlling. Could be wrong, right? But probably. So that we can tell then, therefore, that the books are going to burn a lot higher rates at that point. That's going to be awful. So, you know, beyond maybe Dr. Seuss, you might even want to ask yourself, like, which books do I want to collect and then hide somewhere in a secret compartment like Anne Frank so that I can keep them through the burnings, you know, because that is probably a portent of what's to come. Yeah, always with the smoke and mirrors is right. MK culture. That's exactly right. We're controlled and all they have to do is like this and then we all go and then like and then actual relationships dissolve and divide and like fall apart and I'm like, come on, like we can do better than this. We can see through this. We can, no matter what anybody says their opinion is, there's never a reason to react violently or angrily towards them. And there's so much of that. I was like, dude, you're reacting this way because of an opinion? If someone said, this is my opinion and fuck you, you silly bitch, your mom's a whore. Now I get why you're gonna like react badly to that. But them just saying like, I think Dr. Seuss is a racist. Like, I don't care what you think. Why would I care? Who cares? It's weird to me. It's really weird. Oh yeah, people are going at each other about it. I literally didn't even state my opinion on it. I didn't say whether I liked the publisher's choice or not. I didn't say whether I thought Dr. Seuss was racist or not. I didn't say whether I thought Dr. Seuss was the greatest children's book of all time, writer of all time. None of it. I didn't say anything. I just said, do people know the difference between censorship and the choice to stop publishing a book? And people even, like, got upset with me about that. They were like, I can't believe you're taking this position. I'm like, I didn't take a position. What position? The position of asking a question about what people understand words to mean? That's not a position. That's a question, you know? And by the end of it, they're like, oh, well, you are, like, supporting this and that, and, like, you're like this. And I'm like, still no one's even found out what I think about it. I think now it's clear. Now that I've done this show, hopefully everyone knows what I think about it. Still, people are going to not know what I think about it and tell me that I said something I didn't, because that's how people are, but not you guys, because you guys understand things and have the ability to think. That would never happen on the internet. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. You already knew. Something held you back from jumping on the Seuss team today. Yeah, I mean, like, land wherever you want, right? But, like, we should always pause. We should always wonder. We should always ask those questions. Why do they want me upset? What are they using my leash for? And what are they distracting me from? And finally, why would I divide myself against my community and my friends and my family over this? No. No, thank you. That's interesting. Candace said she spoke to 6 different people today. 0 of them were aware that Biden ordered bombings on Syria recently, and she doesn't watch the news, but they do. That tells you a lot. What's up, Howie Dunn and RL Gill? Biden bombed a Christian militia. Did he? Is that who he bombed in Syria? Yeah. Yes. I'm glad. And like I said, I'm not trying to, like, accuse any of you or anything, or, like, jump down your throat or tell you did something wrong. I told everyone, like, I at first was emotional and reactive too. I was like, how dare they? Like, this is fucked up. And then I was like, oh yeah. Stop, calm down, go back, find out what actually happened. Don't just, like, listen to someone else telling you, like, go find out, you know, look at all the little different ways of thinking about it. So I'm not trying to say, like, I'm better than people or that, you know, other people weren't doing good enough. I'm just trying to bring up the things that I hope we all can look at now at it about this situation, but also how it applies to every situation that could possibly come up. Like, these are just good patterns to have, right? Don't follow psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic people who you can usually identify because A, they're very emotional and loud, B, they cannot stop getting enough of your attention, and C, they cannot handle it when people disagree with them. Anyone who can't handle, that's your key. That's like the key to, is somebody a narcissistic personality disorder? Some narcissists are good at pretending that they don't care if you disagree with them. So you do have to be careful. Though basically, it's the ones who have gotten therapy and know that they have narcissistic personality disorder and know that that's actually not acceptable. Then they start to be like, okay, I hate you for not agreeing with me, and I'm going to try to find a way to discredit and destroy you, but I'm not going to let anybody know that that's how I feel. Like, whew, some people real got issues, but that's one of them. I'm just saying, like, if you want, like, a quick and dirty, like, guide just to go through in your mind, like, who among the personalities and people you know may or may not have personality disorder of some type, especially narcissistic, the inability to deal with people disagreeing with them. Just look for that. I'm about to do a whole, like, write-up just on, you know, the history of the abuse cycle in our society, how it's reinforced at every angle, and why we love narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths. I don't, you don't, but, like, why do we keep going back to them over and over and over again and letting them do this shit? It's because we're fucking Stockholm Syndrome. We're just conditioned to it. But many, many, many people are getting really good at understanding these disorders. They're very antisocial disorders, and they're very destructive. And the more of us heal from it and stop allowing those people to have our attention and energy, the better life will go. Gratitude for community builders. Whoop, whoop. Nice job, Jenny. Builders over breakers is right. Yeah. None but ourselves can free our minds from mental enslavement. It got censorship? Isn't that just Bob Marley? Why are they censoring that? It's absolutely true. None but ourselves can free our minds from mental enslavement. And part of the mental enslavement is that psychopathy, sociopathy, narcissism trap. And part of the mental enslavement is this rhythm they have us in where they can just snap their fingers and we just all freak out and start destroying each other like it's fucking nothing. That also. So we really, really, really want to look at the way this is actually a great microcosm. Do you like look at how you reacted to this and then look at how it progressed for you and look at where you are at now and look at how you're feeling about it and stuff. And you can see a microcosm of how you are able to be controlled. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying whatever you land on, you could be right or wrong. I'll never know. Right? I'm just saying it's a good pattern. It's good to look at the patterns that you have and just ask yourself, like, is this a healthy pattern and is it the pattern I want? Right? Because I'm like, I wish I didn't even react emotionally to begin with. And my goal is to get to the point in life where I don't do that. You know, and I'm way better than I used to be. We all make progress, not perfection. But like, I would prefer it if I just didn't react emotionally at all because they're still controlling me. They still got that much loose out of me, right? I don't want them to have any. I want to respond with my own emotions that are genuine after I've thought things through. And so this is a good little microcosm to look at and identify our own patterns. Ross says, Dr. Seuss is innocuous as fuck. Yeah, for real. I think there's an element of spirit possession with all this cancel culture nonsense. That's what I'm saying. That's that like loosh gathering, right? If they like get you to just react and you're just angry and emotional, like something is siphoning that off and using it somewhere. That's the type of fucking magic that they're into, like on a societal level. They know what they're doing, you know? That's why I'm like, just who cares if they publish or don't publish a book? It still exists. You can still make all the copies of it you want, pass it out as church. Nobody cares. I mean, it's the copyright laws that are going to get you, not the choice to stop publishing. Yes, it's all designed to steal our energy, and it's all designed to divide us, and it's all designed to make us fight each other. It's exactly like Gina Carano said. She's like, dude, if you're like hating your neighbors because of what they think, then you're like on the road to some of the worst shit that supposedly ever happened in history. Like, maybe think about what you're doing. Yeah, there's a bunch of, oh, thanks, James. My mic sounds great. Libraries don't. Libraries really have so little. I mean, they have a lot. There's a ton of shit in libraries that's awesome. But you're absolutely right, Rock Johnson, that libraries are not going to have a lot of the like really good shit. But you know where you can find a lot of it for free is on archive.org. And there was another one I found. Oh, I have to tell you guys now because it's so cool. It's such a good resource. I just have to find it. It was even better than archive.org. I was like shocked. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. Let's see. Oh, I found it. It's so cool. I hope sharing it on here doesn't make it like disappear somehow, but there you go. Free books. I mean, some rare books that I wasn't able to find on Archive were there. That's why I'm saying it's Archive is rad. I'm never gonna knock Archive, but there was some really, really rare books that I couldn't find on there, and I was kind of surprised. And then someone pointed me to this resource, and I went there and found all of them. So that was cool. But yeah, what's up, Michelle Mullen? Nice to see you. $80 boxes of books. Wow, Candace, I have lost the vast majority of my books because of moving around the world. When I moved to Turkey, I gave up a lot of them because my mom didn't want to store them all because I had too many. And I took a lot with me because they shipped some of my stuff over there for me for the job that I had. But then when I moved to Bahrain after that, I had to run away from Bahrain in the middle of the night on a secret plane out of there. And I had to leave all my shit. So I lost many of my books that I loved in that way. But I otherwise feel like I might be like you and have 80 boxes of books. The books you see behind me are most of the books that I own now. It's pretty sad. Much love back at you, Howie Dunn. A poem called How Does 1984 Feel? Very appropriate. Water above, that's the firmament. Water above the firmament. Water above the firmament. What do you guys think? That's what the Bible says. Who knows? I will never know. Yeah, Rock Johnson was the last of 5 children in a narcissistic family of parasites. It was torture. You know what's really weird is my ex-husband's mother and father both had narcissistic personality disorder. I don't even understand how that's possible. I literally don't understand how 2 narcissists coexist. This is why there was a certain event put on at one point by people, and I was like, that's gonna fail because 2 of those people are absolutely narcissists, and there's no way they're gonna coexist together. And it fell apart, and they hate each other now. And I was like, it's not psychic. It's just you just look at like, narcissists don't like each other. And how did those people get married? How were both his parents narcissists? That's weird, right? Anyway, I'm sorry that happened to you. That sounds awful. People who live with narcissists have a lot of hardship. One of my family members has a similar disorder. Very similar. The lack of self-examination is astonishing. I agree. And, we all need each other to help examine ourselves because there's it's always easier to see what do they say, the fleck in someone else's eye instead of the board in your own or whatever. It's always easier. But so we need each other. And so, when I'm saying things like, hey, well, look at yourself. How did you react? Or if I ever comment on something you post and I'm like, I don't know, what about this? Like, I'm not trying to say like, hey, bitch, you're wrong. What the fuck? I'm trying to be like, I don't know. Did you want to consider this other thing? There's another way to consider it. Do it or don't. I don't give a shit. I'm not trying to criticize you. I'm just saying. And I hope people do that for me. I had a fantastic conversation today about this exact topic, actually, which was rad. And it was one of my good friends who, I won't mention his name in case he cares, but I think he'd know who he was if he was listening to this. And we talked a lot. We had a lot of back and forth, a lot of comments. And I appreciate it so much that we can talk and not hate each other because we don't agree. We just didn't agree. We're not going to agree on it ever. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to him. It's cool. But we were able to understand, right? That's the other thing, is it's nice to talk to people who don't freak the fuck out because you don't agree with them, who aren't narcissistic like that. It's nice to talk to them and disagree because it is really cool to get the other side and understand it, right? Very cool. Dying of cancer and finally snapped out of it. That'll do it. Calls, the death calling will make you be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's this life about? What am I going to do with this? I lived in Turkey and Bahrain, yes. Bahrain, yeah. The essence of the Bahrain story is that I went there to teach at a private school, and I was teaching the princes and princesses of Bahrain. Bahrain, if you don't know, is a ridiculously tiny country. It's half the size of the island I grew up on, which is already very small. And yet it's very advanced and it's very liberal as far as and I mean traditionally liberal as in women don't have to wear scarves and stuff. They have more liberty. It's more liberal than any of the surrounding areas in the Middle East. And especially as compared with Saudi Arabia, which it's connected to by bridge. And so rich Saudi women especially would go to Bahrain on the weekends in order to live, like to take off their, gear and have and drive, and not be with men all the time. And so it's a pretty cool, really weird, really strange place. It also has a military base, the U.S. military base, and so there's a lot of Westerners there. Not a lot. I mean, if you're walking down the street, you're not going to see one mostly, but there's a higher concentration than a lot of places in the Middle East because of that military base. And if you go to the military base, you can get Fuddruckers and shit. It was actually the first time I'd ever seen or been to a Fuddruckers was in Bahrain because they serve the base. So there's a lot of like Western chains and stuff that you can like have a taste of home, which is very nice when you're living abroad. And so I taught at this school for princes and princesses and just the richest kids you've ever seen in your life. Like I've never, ever seen anyone richer. And I actually got hired by one of these families to come tutor their son. And this kid's bedroom was literally bigger than any house I had ever and still have ever lived in. His bedroom. There was a moment, this is how rich they were. There was a moment where I was teaching like GPS sort of, I was teaching social studies and I was teaching, latitude and longitude, and I was doing it using Google Earth. And I was, we were looking at all the different like 0 or whatever, 0 degrees here and there and like whatever latitude and longitude, north directions, all that stuff. And so we were looking at Google Earth and we had this smart board because it's a fancy classroom. And, they're asking like, oh, can we look at my house? And like, we'd zoom into their house and they all have these mansions. And, oh, can we look at like Saudi Arabia? And we'd zoom in, look at whatever. And like, oh, can we look at like this place? And we'd look. And by the end of the class, like we had like 3 minutes left and they were like, oh, miss, because they call you miss, can we look at your house? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I was like, well, first of all, we're going to like rotate the whole globe and go over here to the United States. Look how far away, look at how big the ocean is. We're going all that. These are like middle school kids all the way over here. And then I'm zooming in Washington. I'm zooming in on the island that my mom still lives in and one of the houses I grew up in, and zoom in, and then the bell rings and they all just leave. They're like not actually that interested, right? They just wanted to like waste time in class. But one girl stays behind. She's like, miss, I want to see, show me the house. I want to see where you lived. And I'm like zooming in and I'm like right here, and here's the street and here's the house. And she was like, oh, wow. And she's like, what's this? And I was like, oh, that's probably a van. And she's like, what's a van? And I was like, like a car, like a truck. And she went, oh. And like the horror in her eyes was intense. And I was like, what happened? And she was like, ah, like she couldn't speak. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, I really like your house, miss. And then like ran out of the room. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like she was so just like, it was a fucking horrifying to her. And I was like, what was so horrifying? And I was thinking about it. And I was like, it was when she understood what the van was, or, like a car, like. And then I was like, oh, because she saw how big the car was and then realized how small my house was. And it fucking blew her mind. Like she couldn't even conceive of the horror of living in a house that was only like 6 vans wide or whatever. You know what I mean? So that showed me just how like rich and out of touch these kids were if I hadn't known already. And they were sweet, they were really fucked up kids. They had all the same emotional problems as my students in the most poor, just horrifyingly impoverished places that I've taught in the United States, where most of my kids were like homeless and hadn't eaten and were beaten and like had alcoholism and all this shit. And we had like an 80% poverty rate and like really, really poor. They had the same exact behavioral and emotional issues. And that blew my mind too. I was like, how? Like, why? Why are the richest kids, who I always would have thought would have just the best life and the most like emotional wellness, the most opportunity, and all these lies we tell ourselves, why are they fucked up? Like, what happened to them? And the more I was tutoring this kid whose bedroom was bigger than any house I'd ever lived in, the more I understood, like, because he was really fucked up, like really had severe emotional and behavioral issues. And that's my bag, baby. I'm real good with that. So that's why they grabbed me. And, but I was just like, still like, did you get like, hurt when you were a kid by someone, or like, what is this that's happening? And I finally understood rich kids' parents rarely give a shit about them or spend time with them or show any sort of care about them, except in buying them things, which isn't love, as we all know. And so they have often abandonment issues, and they act out, and they just like any kid with abandonment issues in an impoverished school, like lash out at the figures like me who do actually care about them because, they want to test you to see if you'll give up on them like everyone else has. It's really sad. So I learned to feel very sad for these incredibly wealthy prince and princesses of Bahrain. And there's only one crown prince of Bahrain, but their family is big and they run the island. And so there's a lot of kids in the school and they're all princesses and cousins of prince and princesses. And they're all in the royal family essentially. And, so anyways, eventually, I don't know how we got off on this conversation, but I'm going to finish it. Eventually I realized that Bahrain is really, really good at suppressing their media, better than anywhere I've ever been. Because before we went, we researched a lot and we couldn't find out anything. And once we were there, we found out that it was really disturbing. I actually had huge emotional issues about it because people were being just tortured and abused and horribly oppressed in ways that we can't really even imagine in our country. And they're basically enslaved. They basically have slaves from India, and then I don't remember if it's the Sunni or the Shiite that's on top or bottom in Bahrain. It's different in each country, but whichever one's on the bottom, they were just a step above the slave class from India. And I'm not joking when I say slaves. The people go there and they give up their passports and they can't leave and they don't get any money or food and they're just controlled, and it's slavery. And this, class of people that is oppressed there is just a step above that, and they live in whatever hovels they can pull together and, are trying to get their rights back. And when they do so, the military comes and just fucking slaughters them and tortures them and suppresses them. And if you talk about it, it gets immediately suppressed. And so the world doesn't really know. There was Amber Lyons, I think her name is a reporter who tried to report on it for CNN, and she got fired. And she is outspoken about the oppression in Bahrain, but we didn't really know that because you're not allowed to talk about it in the world. And so we got there, and then I started noticing that there's always tear gas in the air, that there's always fires and things are burning down. It's a very small, it's very, very, very small country. You can drive around it in an hour. And that the military was everywhere. And the thing that really started to break me was that one of our friends, you have a driver, you just hire a driver when you're there. And so people had drivers, and it sounds really luxurious, and it's not that luxurious, but it's a nice way for some of the oppressed people to make pretty good money from Westerners. And so you have a driver, and your driver drives you around, and you get to know them somewhat and whatever, you have a relationship with them. Well, one of our friends' drivers disappeared. And they were like, that's weird. And none of the driver's friends or family would say anything about it. And it was a week and a half. And the driver showed back up again and just fucked up, bruised and battered and a shell of a human. Had to keep driving because he needs money. And they understood that he had been disappeared by the police and beaten like that. And then eventually released. And I get sick even thinking about it because how horrible that is. That's going on in Bahrain and nobody gives a shit. Nobody knows. And then right after that happened, bombs started going off in my neighborhood, which I can't remember the name of, but I could tell you if I saw a map of Bahrain and the neighborhoods. And people started dying. And I was pretty sure it was a false flag and that the government or the military was setting off these bombs and blaming it on the, tribe that they're oppressing so that they could continue oppressing them. This is how it works, right? But it doesn't really matter if it's a false flag or not because actual people were dying and it was just going off in random places in my neighborhood. And by the time the 8th bomb went off and 4 people had died or something, I was like, all right, I'm leaving. My school wouldn't let me out of my contract, and I didn't want them to find a reason to take my passport or do something else weird. And so I just got a plane ticket without them knowing, withdrew my final paycheck and got on a plane literally in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and didn't tell anybody we were leaving and left all my shit in the apartment there because I knew if I went and shipped it away, they would know. It's a very small country. And there was a surveillance blimp right above my house. So I was pretty sure if I gave any indication I was leaving that somebody might try to stop me, and I wasn't about to do that. And maybe that was a little bit paranoid, but I was like, I've heard stories from Qatar and other places, and so I wasn't going to test it. And so I just wanted to go home and not be in bomb torture land anymore. So that's how I lost all my books. And a bunch of other stuff that I don't remember even what it was. We actually, it was really cool because we contacted someone from like a deep dark alleyway who was of that oppressed tribe of people there, and we were like, dude, can you just come get like a bunch of shit from our apartment and just take it and give it to whoever, or sell it, do whatever you want, we don't even care, we just don't want them to have it. And he was like, yeah, like I'm gonna come whenever you want me to and take all your shit. So we were able to hopefully get it to people who may have been able to like use it or whatever. That was the only good thing about that. And to really like see how fucked up many countries are. Wow, Bonnie also knows 2 married narcissists. I think that's fucking crazy. I don't get it. I never got to go to the tree in the desert. Weird. Dr. Romani talks about narcissists together. It's like an emotional death match. Awkwardly Awesome says. Yeah. Turkey's amazing. Turkey is not terrifying. People are not blowing up and dying. I mean, I'm sure they are, but not like that, at least. Not as overtly and not as horrifyingly. I don't know. Turkey's a beautiful, amazing nation. I love Turkey. I would completely go back and teach Turkey again for sure. I almost did. My school there is a nightmare. Turkey's a nightmare, but it's a beautiful country. I mean, it's a nightmare because the culture is so different, and I am so very, very much the type of teacher I am, and I can't just change for the culture, and so it's a bit of a clash. But my direct boss always loved me. The boss of the entire school was not so sure about me. It is a dystopian novel. It's fucking horrible. Every single day, my eyes would just be burning all day long because there was so much tear gas in the air. It wouldn't even ever be near me, and it would just always be burning my eyes. Like, it was gross. What's up, algorithm? Oh, yay! Thank you. New to the channel, listener for life. Rockin' awesome. Nice to have you here. Go tell everyone you know. I will absolutely keep bringing love and knowledge as much as I can. Oh, wow. Candace's dad left Iran and Bahrain in the same manner. A decade apart. Wow. Yeah, I wonder if he was around the same time I was. It was right after, supposedly, the Spring Revolt. That's not what it's called. Oh my God. I can't remember right now. I'm tired. I didn't even plan to do a show today. I just like jumped on because I was wanting to talk about this Dr. Seuss thing. But yeah, I want to go back to Turkey, dude. I was very lucky and I was able to travel because it's so cheap to travel within the country. It's like $80, $30 sometimes for a plane ticket to somewhere else in Turkey or even like a neighboring country. Like that's how I got to go to Romania and Eastern Turkey and all kinds of stuff. Arab Spring, thank you so much. Yeah, the Arab Spring had just ended supposedly, and it hadn't ended there. It just was wildly suppressed there. That's what Amber Lyons was actually trying to report about, was the Arab Spring in Bahrain. But yeah, and our country's not perfect, but living in places like Turkey and Bahrain made me really, really appreciate the United States a lot more. Traveling always had made me appreciate home a lot too. But living in another country, you're like, really drives it home. You're like, oh shit, the things I take for granted, like, they are nearly endless. You really don't know until 100% of every day is strange and uncomfortable. Then you start to know. And it takes like 5 months of that to finally get to the point where you're like, wow, every single thing at home is awesome. We still want to get out of our Stockholm syndrome and get rid of the narcissists and the psychopaths, but we can appreciate what we have for sure. So 30 million people protested in Egypt. Yeah, no, dude, the Arab Spring was amazing. And it was at the same time as Occupy, and it was definitely a worldwide birth pang of people who love freedom and each other. And it was beautiful. And they had to work so hard to destroy it, and that was awesome too. Not that they destroyed it, but that they had to work so hard for it. That was a beautiful thing. We kicked ass that year. that was the 2012 energy, I think. I think that's what everyone was talking about. So, and I think that they've suppressed that and killed it, but they haven't. They're just full of hubris. So anyways, on that note, on them being full of hubris and incapable of suppressing our amazingly beautiful humanity that could never ever be squashed, let's always remember to appreciate what we have, to call it what it is, and to wonder if we're calling it something that it isn't out of an emotional reaction, and to love each other no matter where we land on any issue, unless it's something like child rape or, you know, that kind of level of stuff, then obviously care. But for almost everything else, if you love somebody, just keep loving them. It's ridiculous to care what they think about societal or political issues to the extent that you would abandon them. So let's always remember that. Lesson 2, and until we are all masters of not just automatically reacting with loosh fucking just blown open and spraying down their faces, and instead taking deep breaths and being calm and stepping back and considering many possibilities before we believe that we know and have decided and can be done. Until we've mastered that, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first until I see you tomorrow on Rockfin at 7 p.m. Mountain Time with Catherine O'Shea and your animal communication. Come sign up for free and log in and watch us and join us in our live stream. Mwah.
Yeah. I know all around the world, shit. No one even heard of me halfway around the block. I just got an SOS from somebody's girl, begging for a photograph of my watch. Most don't know what time it is. I don't know whose mind this is. Snowing in my sinuses, the league is gonna find the kid, administer punishment. Underwater drumming squids, fuckers wanna pummel and toss them in the rubble bin. What a dumpster fire, motherfucking wide. Try diffusing it if your thoughts are living, grow tired. Split the venom mouthpiece in your mental housing. Sent to finish bounties on everyone who's doubting. There you have it, folks. There's the first round. Contestants know what they won. This insanity. God damn it, Chuck. Said tell them what they won. Took a little breather while we took a break. Went to a park and stole a rich kid's cake. Steak and marijuana too, bumping some Nevada tunes. Wash it down the clown with some of Svetlana's brew. Who the fuck are you? That's what they keep asking. Kevin Garvey on a beat, international assassin. Smashing like my life's at risk. Caskets for the brightest spit. Rip mics tell arthritis hits. Still might make a life of this. Never will concede my run. Clever with deleted puns. Ever undefeated punk professor of the beaten drum. Well, goddamn, that was embarrassing and hard to listen to.